How's it going? So let's talk a little bit more about lyrics. We sort of had this little discussion earlier where I posited that lyrics are the most important part of songs, and of course we can really have great discussions about that. We want to kind of get into, how to perhaps improve lyrics if this is going to be part of our palette of songwriting. I know some of you don't necessarily want to get into lyrics too much, but at the same time, humor me. Let's just sort of see if we can find out a little bit more about how words can make our music more interesting in one way or the other. I selected 3 of the songs that you have selected and put up. So many good ones to choose from. I didn't really choose them necessarily with any big agenda, it's like this, that, and the other. They were all such good songs. I could really have picked any 3 of them. In fact, I should have just put it all in a hat and just done it that way. The best way to figure out maybe how to understand and judge quality in lyrics is to, very quite simply, pick a tune that we think has great lyrics. I mean, we just sort of go, okay, that song I think has great lyrics. Don't really necessarily know why, but in my book, that's a good lyric. Those are words that speak to me in a certain way that I want to be spoken to. So the good way to do it is to take a song like that, look at their lyrics, and try to figure out, okay, if we know that that's a good song and those are good lyrics, well, let's look at what are the properties of those lyrics. And maybe then we can possibly say, well, these properties equal quality, or at least get us in the ballpark of understanding how we can judge quality. And of course, the reason why we want to judge quality for lyrics is so we can maybe use some of that to improve our own lyrics, because the whole point of this is self-improvement and making better art, right? First one I've chosen is the Outkast tune, Miss Jackson, because I noticed there was a bit of a response to that. There's more than one person that was saying, oh yeah, that's great lyric writing for me. Checked it out, and yes, it is great lyric writing in my opinion too. I'll have to agree with that. I'm an Outkast fan. I really like a lot of their stuff. I did see this and kind of nod a little bit and was happy to see it. If you want to play along, I've gone ahead and put out links to these so you can maybe pull them up on YouTube and listen, but I'm not going to play them on this video because if I do that, my YouTube video will get flagged for having illegal stuff on it. So I don't want to do that. I'll leave it up to you to play it on your rig. Okay, so I've got the Miss Jackson lyric up here. So right off the bat, the introduction, a great way to establish what the song's about. It does a good job of, doing the shout out, telling us this is about baby mamas. It establishes a possible plurality, that there may be more than one Jackson that we're representing here. We don't know, of course, going into this, who is Ms. Jackson? Is Ms. Jackson somebody that we need to be familiar with? So that's kind of interesting thing about naming a song something like Ms. Jackson, because you're automatically, when you start to listen to the song, going, okay, who is this Ms. Jackson? You might be able to put this together with the baby mamas, and so that gives you a framework before you even hear the first lyrics. I think that's a pretty good way to set up a song, to set up a story that you're about to tell, give some kind of a context. And it's done very quickly, very easily, with just a title and an introduction. Then they go and start with a chorus. And let's say if you want to write a hit song and you want to make an impact, start with a chorus. That's always a good way to do it. So many great hit songs have started with a chorus. So if that's your game, that's not a bad plan of action. I'm not sure if that was Outkast's game, but it might have been, probably was, because it became a #1 hit. Anyways, it starts with a chorus. And the cool thing about this chorus is it's, we can sort of get into the melody part of it later, because that, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, ooh, I'm for real, just got a great melody all over it. That's a hook. You can't help but sing that. You're going to hear that and sing it. And then never meant to make your daughter cry, I apologize a trillion times. There's lots of internal rhyme with that. There's repetition. There's rhythmic repetition in the chorus. It builds up momentum. So it's a very effective chorus. Establishes the relationships even further. So there's the idea that the singer's apologizing to the mother of his ex for hurting her daughter. And he's not using a lot of words to do it. Again, we're using minimum amount of words to tell a lot of information. If you were just writing a short story, this would be a great first paragraph. It explains some things that sets the scene and then makes you want to ask some questions. Next up, the first verse. Of course, when you're listening to this, you're going to hear a new vocalist. After Andre's chorus, you're going to hear Big Boy coming in. You can already, just if you're reading the lyrics, see that there's a different contrasting vibe to what the chorus is saying. Now, this first verse, there's really not much apology at all. Big Boy is kind of unloading what I would say would be negative information. But he's making this case that he is upstanding for his kid. And then halfway through, he shifts it from a third person, where he's talking about it, to the second person right there in the middle of the verse, and goes from their narration to talking to his ex directly about, her uncool mom. I guess we're talking about his Ms. Jackson. And these lyrics are raw, they're natural, they're fast. It almost seems like there's too much words for the time allotted. They're not really locked into the rhythm. They're really kind of jumble around, playing around with the rhythm, which is a style that these guys do so well, so effectively. There's so much rich information in these lyrics. There's so much description. I feel like I'm reading somebody's journal almost. There's so much going on with that. So he tells a story. Ms. Jackson's coming off pretty negatively, which is kind of interesting because we've already heard this chorus, which is an apology from Andre. When I hear these kind of contrasts in lyrics, I don't know if I consciously do it or not, but subconsciously, if there's some kind of cognitive dissonance at all, I kind of feel like that adds a certain enhancement to the tune in a way. So this is one of the things I like about this style of lyric writing, where you're not quite sure what's going on when you first hear it. Later on, there's some reveals that happen, but we're going from an apologetic chorus to pretty much not really happy with Ms. Jackson with this first verse, Big Boy. And then we come back with the chorus, which again has this hook, has this rhythmic approach. The pace of the verse sets up a real tension. That's a very tense verse, and then the chorus relaxes. This is very effective songwriting, in my opinion, when you create some turmoil and then you relieve it and then set up the table for the next one. So then after that chorus, then we go to a bridge, which goes into a new direction. And it's got Andre singing rhythmically this time with melody, so it's not so much of a rap. So this again contrasting with the Big Boy approach. And there's a very positive, the good vibe, the little twist at the end where you can't predict the weather. That sets a really nice little setup for Andre's verse. There's a different vibe from Big Boy's verse. And now this seems like the song that the chorus is suggesting is Andre's verse. And it's more positive, reflective of the chorus. And he's speaking to his Ms. Jackson. I'm pretty sure it's different than Big Boy's Ms. Jackson. Maybe the same. That's not really clear. He's also explaining how he's going to be upstanding for his kid. And he's genuinely sorry about his puppy love grew into a dog, which is then followed by the chorus, which reinforces that whole vibe, the Andre vibe, if you will, of this tune. Then we're back to Big Boy. He's back into a very negative thing, and it's directed at his ex. And there's really nothing about the Ms. Jackson in his verse except the very end just saying, get out of here with your mama. There's fast, furious delivery and rhythm. There's, again, we're building up tension, very much in contrast to the chorus. And then we get the chorus out, finishing out the tune. So we get this nice sort of dichotomy going here. And at the end of the song, we have a pretty good idea of what they're really talking about. They're just sort of coming at the same thing from two different sides about how there can be some difficulties with your ex-lover's mother. And they can be different kind of difficulties, but they show you a really good picture of emotional impact of that on their lives. It's great songwriting. Good choice. There's a story here. It's one of those story songs I was talking about, although there's the story is sort of approached from different angles. Okay, so the next one that I chose was the Halsey, Sorry. The thing about this song that was pretty cool is that it's really pretty classic in its lyric approach. There's not really fancy. The rhyme, the phrasing, very consistent. Presents a situation and emotional state very clearly, pretty eloquently. Not a lot of surprise twists. It's not trying to be fancy with the songwriting. It's pretty appropriate to the simplicity of the music and the genre and the musical style and the way that Halsey is singing. This really puts a lot of the focus on the quality of her voice. So let's look at the lyrics real quick. Looking at the first verse. What's kind of great about this first verse is that we get good details, visuals in this first verse. It's a very natural, the rhymes are just a little bit loose with some of the endings on song. As long as they sound pretty good at the end, you don't have to have the exact consonants at the end of lines. If the phrasing sounds good and it sounds natural, all of this sounds very natural as it's being sung. None of it sounds forced. Good details, visuals. You have missed calls, jewelry. This phrase, try you on, I think that's a good phrase. Birthday, mom's favorite songs. Lots of little sort of details that sort of help you kind of get into her frame of mind. One of the good things in lyric about details is that it suggests an intimacy that brings you into that world if it's done right. Something to think about when you're writing your lyrics is how you can use some of these details and visuals to set your stages up and get your points across. So we have a chorus then, which has this really nice mantra use of the word sorry, which again, that's the chorus title of the song. So that's sort of soothing. And then she sort of explains your case. The chorus does a good job of sort of explaining what the song is about, that there's a regret. Although find myself personally just a little tiny bit confused by the line, didn't mean to leave you, and all of the things we had behind. Having been given this information earlier that the singer had changed her mind and she had been mean and missed this person's calls. Didn't mean to leave it behind if you'd done all these things. I don't know, there's some ambiguity there, which is okay. And maybe I'm making something out of that that's not really important, but I do notice these things. The second verse fills in the emotional blanks. It's less visual than the first verse, but then she's doing more emotional speaking. She's getting more of a sense of the real remorse that the singer has in this, and her understanding of the damage that she's done here. That sort of helps us sort of feel a little bit more for the singer. By now, I'm not sure how I feel about the singer after the first chorus. This second one, I kind of feels like she has a real remorse, and so now I do care a little bit more about this singer. So when the second chorus comes along, I feel better about it. So that's a good little device to do in your songwriting too, is to sort of put it out there in the first verse. Then that second verse can then fill in more emotional information that you can use. And then we get to this bridge. And to me, this bridge reads more as a second chorus than a standard bridge. Once you had a verse and a chorus, a lot of times to me, a bridge is a departure that sort of goes off on a tangent that then makes coming back to that chorus at the end, or the verse and the chorus at the end, seem like a little bit of a journey. You're getting another side of the picture here from the bridge. And to me, this bridge is more of a second chorus that sort of elaborates. And it's a little bit of a reveal, though. It's like the singer might be sorry about everything that she's saying here, but she doesn't love you. That's kind of the interesting point. But hey, don't worry. Somebody will love you eventually. Someone will love you. It's not going to be me. That's an interesting message to get. That's the message there from that bridge that comes out. And there's a lot of repetition. To me, what happens with repetition is that I tend to scan that as being more chorus-like than bridge-like. But again, this is semantics. We do come back to the chorus, and then we go to the bridge again, so that they go back and forth with that. There's a sadness throughout this, with this apology. But here's the interesting thing about this lyric that I find is that the singer doesn't change and is not going to be the one who changes. It's the person that she's singing to who changes. The singer remains the same. So that's an interesting perspective that I get from this lyric. It's a very simple lyric, and it has a very certain emotional arc. And it's got a really pretty good melody, too. So I think Halsey really does create an emotional resonance for people that have walked away from a love situation in this manner. This is if you've been through this kind of a relationship, I would say this probably accurately described this emotional situation. And again, it makes a very good vehicle for her as a singer playing piano. The style of her voice that she has, that sort of interesting kind of edge that she has. It seems to be a very good vehicle for her. I guess it was a big hit. So my take on that song, I would not call this a story song. I would call this an emotion song. This is about being sorry, and it's about a facet of being sorry. And it's about being sorry that you're not the person that's going to love this person. So go away. I got one more song to talk about here, and that was the Avatar rap song, because there's a lot of a tendency for folks these days, when asked to choose a favorite song, a lot of times they'll choose a song from a game. Although when I first had that happen, I was a little puzzled by that, but now I realize there's a lot of great songs being written in this genre. This is probably where a lot of pretty good songwriters are finding a voice for themselves, because it's not really happening on the charts, so to speak, and pop music. So it's always interesting to hear what one of these songs sounds like and what the approach to the lyric writing is. So I'm looking at the Team Avatar rap, and we'll pull that up. This is a strong form to work with, okay? You can't really go wrong with this. You come in with a really strong, driving explanation type of chorus. This is the statement. There's rhythm, there's urgency, there's repetition. The rhythm of it is fairly straightforward, and you're presenting Team Avatar, and you're excited about this. The English dude that's singing this, he's feeling it. As I mentioned before, when you start a song with a chorus, that kind of says, we mean business. We do want your attention right from the beginning. We're not going to try to seduce you. We're going to tell you what the song's about, and then we're going to let the rest of it go. If you want that kind of an attention for your song, start with a chorus. That's not a bad idea. When I read the page, it reads really well. It's really very meticulously designed lyrics here. I mean, these are some really well phrased. Somebody went through a lot of trouble to do this. This is not just thrown out there. And this first verse in particular is pretty intense in the way that it comes across. It's probably the most powerful one in terms of the delivery and the rhythm. That very constant delivery at the beginning of this then going into the very fast triplets, which is just relentlessly triplet. Very difficult to do that. So that first one really does come out of the gate pretty strong, and it also kind of makes you wonder, are the rest of them going to be like that? It would just be my guess, because I'm not familiar with the game, that this person that's first is probably the most powerful of the group, if I'm not mistaken. But correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it the way that the lyrics are coming across anyway. Pretty relentless, pretty well written stuff. For the most part, I really do enjoy these lyrics, even though I know I'm missing a lot of the meaning due to my unfamiliarity with this game or the program. And the reason why I actually kind of enjoy this is because there's just enough stuff in there, just enough imagery and wordplay that catches my interest, that keeps me interested, even though I may not understand what they're talking about with certain things like Nutty Like I'm Boomy. I don't know really what Boomy is. Touring with Aang. Sock's a fire sucker. Okay, that one's for my mother. I like that line. I mean, it sounds pretty good. I don't no idea what sock's a fire sucker means, so that's probably something to do with the game. So, but anyways, I get enjoyment from this because there's lots of good one-liners, you know? It's like, you know, my boyfriend is a vegan, so I have to bring the beef. Who doesn't like that? You can call me the goat, but I prefer the badger mole. I don't have to know anything about this stuff to be entertained by this stuff. In fact, I like to listen to a lot of music where I don't know what the lyrics are, if it's in different languages. And sometimes I don't even know what the lyrics are about, but I still can get something from that. I will say, though, it really does help to hear this tune when you're reading the lyrics. To just go with the lyric by itself, you're missing way too much of this stuff. It's pretty obvious that there are 5 different people. The way that they're singing and rapping is completely different. The first one is using that super fast constant triplet that's almost impossible to do. The second one, I guess I'm talking about a flow like a waterbending, slice like a katana, stacks bodies like Tetris. I like that way. That one sort of starts off with an open flow and then goes to the fast triplets with stops, then back to the open flow, and then the slow triplets. There's some nice technique happening with each of these. I sort of found the third character to be sort of the weakest in terms of their delivery, which is pretty much straightforward, open, steady flow. Then the fourth, you get a definite, more urban approach to that. I mean, all of a sudden it seems like we have gone to another part of town here. Very steady flow. Fifth one, similar urban approach, and then has that relentless flow at the end. So there's lots of good pacing with this stuff, each of them having their own separate kind of feel to them. Lots of good bragging, which is very appropriate for this genre style. I expect that from a fairly decent hip-hop tune. I want to hear somebody telling me how badass they are in a way that makes me go, haha, that's good. I like that. Which sort of begs the question. I realize that I'm showing my ignorance here a little bit, and you can answer this in the post at some point. Does this music play within the game, or is this exist outside of the game, or is this just not even involved with the game, or am I just making up this whole game part? Anyways, I'm curious. If the lyric has pacing, if it's using different devices well, different rhythms, different rhymes, images that we can sort of fasten our minds onto, and they're giving it to us in a good pace, that's good songwriting. I recognize that as quality. I find myself at the end of the day, after looking at these qualities and listening to the songs, I agree wholeheartedly with those of you who put these up as saying these are great examples. They sort of meet certain criteria for me anyway. They get information across in a way that is entertaining, makes sense, is paced well, has energy flow, has imagery, works well with their melodies. That's what we were looking for when we're starting to try to think about lyrics. And maybe then now we can sort of steal it and use it, because every one of these people that did these songs, they stole everything from everybody else. We steal, steal, steal. That's the beautiful thing about songwriting, except we can't steal blatantly. But in terms of like taking some of the good ideas from other people's songwriting, we are always doing that constantly. There's no proprietary information. There are rules to this, of course, but I am speaking more of in the general sense that if you see a trick being used in a song and you think that's cool, you can use it too. Everything is fair game. Anyways, hopefully looking at these lyrics of these tunes in this way sort of helps you kind of get some idea of how you can start fashioning lyrics of quality of your own. I'll be talking a little bit about melody in the next upcoming video. In the meantime, enjoy the day. We'll talk to you soon.